everybody.
Howdy! Welcome to Flak, October 8th edition. And no echo. Echo. Echo.
That's right. No more echo. The no
How-
echo show. You
However,
see,
I
I
am
said
sitting out.
no.
Oh, yeah,
Hey, Larry kicked her out of the house, so she's sitting out in the backyard.
it's true. They finally just had enough of my stupid jokes. So, no,
Now,
I'm out here because
hot.
my office just made me crazy today. So, I'm out here. I'm by the pool, and you will be hearing loud uh, ravens singing the song of their people over my head. So I will occasionally have to tell them to shut up. But we
It's
also
been
have,
quiet for a while, knock on wood.
yeah, yeah. I think it was just doing that to let us know he was there.
Well, he probably has children up there and did not want you out there.
It's true, you know.
I've had that happen out in my front yard. I'll go outside, and one of these little birds comes flying up in my face. Like, get out of my neighborhood.
Who are you? They they we have hummingbirds who will come and hover right in front of you and look at you like, okay, you're regular. Now, what we're going to do today is talk about a piece of Los Angeles history in the form of our first and foremost horror host. Most cities have one, and ours predated MST 3000 by a number of years, and he did all the stuff they did first. So he was Larry Vincent, who went by the name Sinister Seymour, and he was very funny. And
Oh yeah, it was hilarious. Now I got a quiz for you. What
okay,
was his What was his real name? Larry Vincent was his stage name.
Vance was his real
It
last
was
name.
it was Jerry Vale. Close.
Jerry Vale?
The same as the singer.
No,
That's
no
why
one.
that's why he changed his name.
One
Wait, I
can
think
understand.
hang on. Hang on just a second. I'm almost positive I'm right, but let me check.
I thought it was Jerry or Larry Vance or something. But if it's Jerry Vale, that's hilarious.
Now wait a second. Now this says something different than they said on the history of the haunt. Okay, his name was Francis Fitzgerald Larry Vincent. So his name was really Larry Vincent. Okay, so that
Okay.
history that history of the haunt thing on YouTube was wrong.
He probably told a lot of people different things. So
Oh,
ask
knowing
his kid
him,
to do that.
my favorite one of his comments about a movie is there was this movie, a horror movie, where they had these little fuzzy creatures that had like fishing lines hooked to them, and they had pipe cleaner antennas, and somebody pulled them along the floor, and he called it Invasion of the Bunny Slippers. And
I
I mean, it was funny. I wish that things weren't like they were back then. Back in those days, in the black and white days, most of that stuff was done on kinescope, and they didn't keep any of it. it was disposed of because it was really flammable.
Yeah.
So storing it was dangerous. So almost all of those old shows that you watched, they're gone.
Yep.
And sometimes there'd be some kind of a vindictive thing between the host and the studio. That's what happened to almost all of the Jerry Mahoney shows that Paul
Yeah.
Lynch did. He had a feud with Channel 11, and Channel 11 put all of the tapes in a 55-gallon drum and burned them right in front of him. So
Paul Winchell was not an easy man to know. Um,
I had not heard that.
he I had some talking back and forth over emailing back and forth with his daughter April, and of course that's just one side of things. But I know when she came to the studio to do voice work, people were terrified of her because they thought she was going to be like her dad, and of course she's not. She's very laid back, and her
Well,
dad
he's the
was a brilliant man.
Yeah, I
And
was going to say that he invented the artificial heart.
yep, and he did lots of things that the first time it was done in entertainment, and she did
Papa,
remember that.
he did one of the Smurf characters. He was Tigger.
Yep,
Uh, bunch of bunch of
where
things for Disney.
he's irreplaceable in terms of his voice work, without a doubt. But he also April remembered they were at a very nice restaurant, and he kept being bothered by kids running up and going, "Can I have your autograph?" And she was mad. She said, "What are they doing that for?" And um, he said, "No, you know that pretty dress you've got on? That came from those kids. You know this food we're eating? That came from those kids. Those kids have given us all of this. So damn right we're going to sign autographs."
Well,
So
that's good.
for that, I think he needs to be credited. It's not something you'd hear very often these days.
Well, I heard. I think it was Armin Shimmerman made the comment. To those of you who are not Star Trek fans, he was a character on Star Trek, and he commented that the day that people stop asking him for his autograph will be the day when he starts worrying.
The We're suddenly having
Fly by.
I guess they all decided to come up our street. Anyway,
That's why you
yeah,
don't do podcasts outside.
yes. Well, we know that now, don't we?
But hey, just to let everybody know, the joking about Larry kicking her out of the house, Melody is revamping her studio.
We're
So,
redoing the whole thing.
yeah, Melody's redoing her studio. She's going to be up and having green screen like her brother. And did you get the laptop working?
Yep, laptop
Okay,
working.
she's got a laptop. She's got the same webcam that I have. I hope hers works better than mine. Just turn off autofocus.
Yeah.
If you turn off autofocus, it works okay. If you put it on autofocus, you're constantly going in and out of focus. Speaking of focus,
Yes.
uh, I was having severe trouble with my vision. Uh, I and my birthday is November 3rd. I am over 65. My driver's license is coming up. And when you're over 65, you have to go in and take the written test and an eye test. You don't have to take the driver test, but you have to take the written test and the eye test. So I was really afraid I wasn't going to pass the eye test. Well, I went in to see my eye doctor. Turned out there was a membrane floating behind the iris in my left eye. He got in there with the laser and zapped it, and now I'm like 2020. So,
Fantastic. All right.
so thank goodness he says that I will pass the DMB eye test from twice the distance. So he told
Fantastic.
me, I said, well, I need to get glasses. He says, you don't need glasses. He says, you'll pass the test without glasses. I said,
Cool.
wow. I says, I've needed glasses since I was 16.
Well,
So
some of us,
no
even
more.
with our cataracts
Oh,
surgery,
you had cataract surgery? I
oh
didn't
yeah, both
remember.
eyes,
Laser or scalpel?
laser, and it. Uh, my eyes were better for a while, and I'm told that my eyes are actually pretty good, but it's a psychological thing, I guess, that I've always worn glasses, so I think 13 is when I got my glasses. So
Yep.
anyway, let's get back.
The Tanners don't have good eyes, good ears, or good teeth. So
Or a good spine for that matter.
yeah, that too.
We're
but
good. Anyway,
but
getting
we're
back.
cute as hell. So
Yep, there
we're
you
back to
go.
Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
let me show a couple pictures.
okay, go for it.
This, for those of you that don't know who the hell Seymour was, this is Seymour, the fellow with the cape, not the skeleton.
Yeah.
And this is the ad from the very first Halloween haunt, which was $4 to get in. How do you like that? Now here's the second one. Seymour was unfortunately only there for the first two. And unfortunately, in March of 1975, we lost Larry Benson to cancer. He did the last haunt, which was in 74, having been driven from St. Joseph's Medical Center in the cancer ward, barely able to walk, and because he was the old style performer, he felt that the show must go on. He didn't want to disappoint his fringies,
Yep.
so he was there and performed the whole show, and immediately afterward was taken back to the cancer ward, and he died just 5 months later.
Bless his heart. He was only 50 years old. He was a young
Yep.
man.
You could tell looking at him that he wasn't well
Yeah.
towards
He
the
had,
last.
yeah, he died of stomach cancer, which is a tough way to go. But anyway, he was a great um, member of the media while he lasted, and we had him for it seems like a long time when you're that age. 2 years is an infinity when you're at in your teens.
Well,
But
we watched his show. He was on Channel 9 and Channel 5.
yeah,
He was on 9, then he went to 5, then he went back to 9, and I think he was on 11 or 13, one of them, for a little while.
yeah,
And that was right towards the end when he was sick. And but in his prime was when he was on Channel 9, Fright Night, because they had that guy who they had a guy on Channel 9 that was their announcer, and he had a sci-fi voice. He used to do the announcing for science fiction theater. Remember they had that show and stuff, and he was really good. And he paired very well with Seymour. They were a
Yep.
good team. So when Seymour left there, went to Channel 5, it kind of lost a little of its polish. But it was still good to see Seymour, but
Yeah,
it
but
was
it wasn't
different.
the same. Yeah,
No, it wasn't the same. The best of his shows were on Channel 9.
there you go.
Now, there is only one really good quality video uh, reels of Seymour doing that shtick. Uh, if you want to see it, there's a podcast. I should have written it down. There's a podcast of a gentleman about the history and the story of Larry Benson, and it is done by his daughters. His daughters are involved and on the podcast. And they happen to own that piece of video footage, so they let him play it. So if you want to see some good footage of Seymour, watch that. And a lot of the pictures that I got came off of the history of the Knott's Scary Farm. It wasn't called the Knott's Scary Farm at first. It was called the Knott's Halloween Haunt. And then after, I think it was like 76 or 77, they started calling it Knott's Scary Farm.
Somebody pointed out that Barry rhymed with scary.
Yeah, I mean, now you know that the Knott's family, who made all the decisions back at that time, they still owned the park. The Knott's family, this was proposed to the Knott's family, and the Knott's family said no. They shot it down. They said that they didn't think it was fitting the classiness of the park, and they thought it would be too crass, and they didn't want to do it. So just so happened Walter Knott, who had retired, just happened to get wind of this. So he went to the people that, I mean, this man's in his 90s, and he went to the people that were going to set this up, and he says, "Okay." He sat down in a chair and he says, "Pitch it to me." So they all told him everything they wanted to do, and he says, "That sounds good to me." He says, "I'd like to have a party at my park." He says, "Do it." So Walter Knott shot down all his family, and it's because of 93-year-old Walter Knott. Well, I don't know if he was 93 at the time. He passed away at 93, but now he drug his head across his hand across my head.
Yeah.
Our school, Fairmont Private School, was one of the schools that they had line up around along the entryway to Independence Hall when they opened it. And Walter Knott, who was up there by that time, uh, he walked though. He was walked along the walkway with somebody helping him, and he reached out with this bony hand of his and drug his hand across all the kids' head, and messed their hair up. But I think he was trying to be friendly.
Oh, yeah.
But
You,
so technically, I met Walter Knott. I mean, like Diane Disney Miller bumped into me in Disneyland, so I consider that meeting her.
darn straight.
She turned and said, "Excuse me." So she talked to me.
Yeah, there you go.
I was at the 50th celebration, and I was standing along uh, Main Street, and they had this walkway roped off on the left, so the dignitaries and stuff could get to the stage. And when she was walking along there, she bumped into my arm and said, "Excuse me." So that was pretty cool.
That's nice.
So I actually got to see Diane Disney Miller. I know we're talking about some other place other than Knutsbury
That's okay.
Farm.
It's an amusement park.
Yeah,
But
but
we had a number of. I was going to say we had a number of horror hosts over the years. Everywhere has. But I can't think of any before Seymour in L.A.
there was one. Somebody told me there was a woman but she just like laid on this couch and
Yeah.
talked a little bit in between the movies and introduced the movie. She didn't do a shtick like nothing like Seymour. And
Yeah.
I forget what she called herself. But after Seymour and before, actually here, me, this lady up here in the upper left hand corner. I don't know, when I put my arrow over there, do you see it?
No.
Okay, that's what I was asking. The lady in the upper left hand corner of this ad. Okay, her I don't know what her real name was, but she called herself Mona Lisa.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And she had long black hair and a black low cut dress. Sound like anybody you know?
Yeah.
Now, all Elvira did was lower the low cut down to her navel, practically, and had bigger accoutrements than Mona Lisa happened to have. And but Cassandra Peterson was in Playboy,
Yeah.
so she
Well,
was not unused to revealing herself.
I should point out that my old friend Mila Nurmi, who played Vampira in on the East Coast, I believe she was also out here for a while. Um,
Yeah, I met her.
yeah, I she was a semi friend of mine, an acquaintance certainly, and she was a great lady, and she really did sort of originate that um,
Character.
dark bombshell. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I have a like 6 foot tall, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet wide picture of her, a cartoon of her in a red, like leotard jumpsuit looking thing. And she autographed it for me at one of the StarCons that
that's
we
cool.
did. She was at the show, so I had her sign it. And she died not too long after that. So you
Yeah.
know, I consider myself lucky to have that.
Bless her heart. She lived over at the Roosevelt Hotel. She had a room there, and she rarely left it. And basically, it was only when she'd go to these gatherings, and she really didn't need the money. She had inherited a bit, and but she did it just because she wanted to see people. And
Well, there were a lot of people from her era at the show, so she was kind of in her element
oh
at
yeah,
the show.
but she
I mean,
also go ahead.
there was Russell Johnson was there.
Yeah,
Everybody knows Russell Johnson as the professor
that's
on Gilligan's Island, but he was on a bunch of horror movies and sci-fi movies back in the day.
right. And Mila also happened to have the James Dean inter group that would follow her. She was friends with Dean and um, knew him fairly well. So,
Wow, Zoom.
I swear to God,
Folks, Melanie is not in control of any of those noises.
I
So,
am not. And what's so weird is I don't live in the middle of a massive town. I'm in a little area of a medium-sized town that usually doesn't have this noise on Saturday. But clearly they decided not. I
But
apologize for the noise.
that's okay.
At least it's better than an echo.
So, well, anyway, Seymour, let's go back to Knott's.
Yes.
Seymour was had this idea for an event with the fans because he liked interacting with the fans. That was his favorite thing. So he set up events at Magic Mountain. He set up events at Universal Studios. And those were really his first two haunts, but they were nothing like what they did at Knott's Berry Farm. Knott's Berry Farm kind of bent over backwards to help him put it together.
They recognized the value of the event.
Yeah, because there wasn't anything like it.
How they've all
Trying to find out. Good.
Let's
see. I'm trying to see.
Really?
Yeah, trying to see if there was information as to who the people were that were doing the. Bill Hollingshead is the one that originally, and Gary Salisbury and Martha Boyd. Now, also Gene. This is an interesting thing. Gene Witham, who originated the makeup for Planet of the Apes, worked at Knott's Berry Farm.
Wow.
And he brought home some of the facial, appliances.
Right.
And put them on, I keep wanting to say cast members, but no, employees.
Employees.
At Knott's Berry Farm, and did the makeup around them. So there were a bunch of monkeys and gorillas there that looked surprisingly like the ones from Planet of the Apes, because they were. So if you remember back then going and seeing those guys, you saw actual props from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, the thing to remember is, I'm sorry.
No, I wish I had thought about this earlier. I would have gone to my storage unit. I have a pair of rubber monster arms that are marked on the inside, Knott's Berry Farm. So I know these came from the haunt. And they're old. I've had them for 30 years, so they're old. So I'll dig them out and put them on the show so you can see them. And they're nothing, to write home about. They're just rubber monster arms, but it's obviously something they used at the park. And anyway, Seymour, he tried these other venues, but it didn't work out for him because the thing they did not have that Knott's Berry Farm built in the early 70s was a theater with a movie screen. Back then it was called the John Wayne Theater, then it became the Good Time Theater, then it became the Charles Schulz Theater, and now it is the Walter Knott Theater. And if they find something out about Walter Knott they don't like, they'll change it and it'll be something else. So anyway, it's changed names a number of times. My sister and I went there to see Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids.
Several times.
Yes. And they used to have I don't think they still use it. I think it doesn't work anymore. They used to have a water curtain.
No, they don't have it any longer.
Yeah, but back then, it was pretty early in the history of the theater, and they had a water curtain that there was like little drops of water fell from. It wasn't Like they didn't have strings with water; it was actual water. And one of the things that Flash Cadillac's guys did, this guy Slick, he called himself. I think it was Slick. He used to
You
walk
mean
up to it.
the
The
main guitar
tall, the tall,
spike?
skinny guy, Spike. Okay,
Spike.
he walked up to it with his comb, put it in the water, and then combed his hair. And it was a good thing. They were very funny. They were kind of nasty. It depended on the audience. If the audience was kids, they weren't. But we, uh, my wife and I saw them at the Palomino Club, which was a nightclub, and they were different.
I saw them there too, and yeah, they were very different.
But they were
They
funny.
Yeah, oh, always. And
Yeah, they were funny.
really, I think, in fact, Robert Hilburn said that Flash Cadillac had the quintessential rock and roll voice. So sadly,
Oh,
they're all. I'm
they
sorry.
could have had they been born in that era
Yeah.
been rock stars.
Oh, sure. But they've all gone now except for one member, and
Which one is that?
the saxophone player, the guy who used
Which
to do.
which one
Um,
had the toupee?
that's the one.
That's him? Okay.
Yeah,
He used to wear a Letterman's jacket and he had a black toupee.
yeah. He's on the Happy Days episode with them, and a couple of the other things they did.
Well, the reason I know he had a toupee is he got stuck in his saxophone one time during a performance and he pulled it off his head.
Yeah,
Oh, that was embarrassing. I don't know. He might have done it on purpose, because they did
they did all
gags like
kinds of
that.
shtick. Yeah, but they were very big at Knott's for many years, and the
Now, the I'm going to call it the John Wayne Theater. That's what I remembered it. The John Wayne Theater was famous for being the very last place that the Everly Brothers played together before they broke up. Now, I think they got together before they died, didn't they?
yeah,
I thought I heard that they got together, but when their original breakup occurred on stage at the John Wayne Theater.
I saw it.
Oh, you were there?
Garlina and I,
Hey,
my old friend
wow, cool.
Garlina.
Oh God, I haven't heard her name in forever.
She's over on Facebook.
Garlina McGuffin.
Yep. She's
Yeah, I remember the
Garlina
name.
Garlina Gomez now, I think.
But she was McGuffin back then, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I
she's married. She
remember.
has a teenage daughter, and we all go that
She has
direction.
a teenage daughter?
Well, not anymore. She'd be in her probably early 30s now.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's kind of old to have a teenage
Yeah,
daughter.
I know. I was thinking, yeah, she's older than that now. The first time I communicated with her, she had a teenage daughter. Now she's got a
Well,
30-something daughter.
it's
But
funny. I'm hooking up with all these people that, like Susan Tanner.
yeah,
I found her. Her family owned the bookstore at Knott's Berry Farm, which
yeah,
is the one, if you recall, that giant imitation gold nugget that was a replica of the one. That's where they had that, was at the bookstore.
yeah.
And
And
my mother used to like to go there every year and buy us another McGuffey's Readers. Is
McGuffey's
that
reader.
was called? Yeah.
McGuffey's
And
eclectic reader.
yeah, that was the see Dick run, see Jane run, see Dick slap
No,
Jane. Or
yeah, no. They had pieces by
What was it?
Lord Byron in there. They had just classic literature in there. It was in language befitting a grammar school child, but it was some pretty cool stuff that we read in those years.
I gotta say that these stores at Knott's Berry Farm back then were kind of magical.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you go in those places and they had shelves full of McGuffey's readers. I'll bet you, I don't even know if they print them anymore.
yeah,
If
they
they
do.
do, if they do, I don't know where the hell you'd buy one because I know you'd have to buy it online or something. Because
Yeah,
they don't. I can tell you, they don't sell them at Knott's, and they used to have a great toy store. They had a train running around the ledge like that Po Folks restaurant used to have. I don't know if you ever went to Po Folks,
I've heard
but
of it.
they had a train running around the ledge at the top of the toy store, and they had all sorts of cool toys that you just couldn't find at your local toy store. They had the entire line of corgi cars, and like the Batmobile and the James Bond car, and all of those. And so I was like drooling over those cars when we'd go there because I got a $1 allowance, and those corky cars were like $6. So I had to really beg to get one of those good cars.
Especially from our parents. But the it's interesting that I just got a message from somebody. How come you guys were always there? It's because there wasn't a lot to do back in 1973 in
Well,
Los
not only
Angeles.
that, but it didn't cost anything to get into
It
Knott's
was cheap.
until like the mid 60s. They didn't start charging admission until I can remember when they started charging admission. So that means it had to be 65 or later when they started charging admission. They claimed it was because there were too many homeless people sleeping at the park. Now, we know it wasn't because there were too many homeless people sleeping in the park. It was because they knew they could make a little more money.
Yes.
And, expenses go up. You got to charge more. I mean, the hot was $4 to begin with, and now it's like $80.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I know Mrs. Knott's Chicken House used to be, like $10 for the whole schmear, and now it's 40.
I've got an ad for it. It was a
How you
dollar.
do?
It was a dollar.
Was it really?
Yep, it was a dollar for the chicken dinner.
I
Can you
remember it being
imagine
cheap.
that? But a dollar? I mean, but that was, you got to remember, Knott's has been there since the 30s.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
I
been
was
there for a
way.
long time. And okay, I have to break your heart. Walter Knott did not develop the strawberry or the boysenberry.
I thought it was
One of
his partner.
one of his employees developed it. So, but it was done on Knott property. So you know,
Technically.
and and he did it while being employed by Walter Knott. So guess what? It belongs to Walter Knott, or well, it belongs to whoever succeeded Walter Knott. Now,
And
I believe the Knott uh, line of foods and stuff still belongs to the family.
yeah,
That
it's
was not included when Cedar
Cedar Fair. That's the
Cedar
name of it. Cedar
I
Fair.
don't know, Cedar Park or Cedar something when they bought Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah.
Now they are desperately trying to find somebody to buy it. Yep. They're finding that being in the theme park business these days is too expensive for them.
Well,
Now, I know when the Knott family originally decided to sell the park, the first people they approached were the Disneys.
yeah.
Disney sent two of their engineers out and they did a survey of the park. And they reported back that it would cost more than the sale price to bring Knott's Berry Farm up to Disney levels of safety and cleanliness. So Disney decided not
Not to
to
do it.
buy it.
Well, I know they had said the Six Flags company was somewhat involved in negotiations for a while, but happily they decided not to because, I mean, really, if there's a worse run amusement park than Magic Mountain, I don't know where it might be.
Well, Magic Mountain, when it originally opened, for the first 4 or 5 years, was a death trap.
Yeah.
There were people killed on the Skyway. There was somebody, I believe, killed on the Ferris wheel. There were a number of people killed or injured seriously at Magic Mountain. And Magic Mountain ended up uh, going bankrupt. And they sold it to Hanna-Barbera originally.
Yeah.
That's where the filming of the Banana Splits and all the Hanna-Barbera characters being associated with Magic Mountain, that's where that came in. Because Hanna-Barbera had this bright idea they were going to start a chain of amusement parks called Jellystone National Park. And I don't know, you may not recall this, but when we lived out in Hesperia, over by Lake Silverwood, which was constructed while we lived there, uh, they had a big billboard that said "Future Home of Yogi's Jellystone National Park."
I
But that's
vaguely,
all we ever saw was the billboard. We
yeah.
They never broke ground for a damn thing. That was all we ever saw was the billboard. I was driving back then, but not nearly as fast as that guy. And but Melody wasn't driving, so that's why I would have seen some things that Melody didn't see. But I saw that.
I
So,
remember Silverwood Lake and I remember hearing about the sign, but I don't remember having seen it.
all right, we got 16 minutes left. We should complete our Knott's Berry Farm
Yes, we
report.
should.
I keep getting sidetracked, but anyway,
At
so
least we're talking about.
that's why the haunt started was because of Seymour, not for any other reason. Because Seymour wanted a place to do his shtick,
And
and he
his
did, and
idea.
it was very popular. But Knott's made buckets full of money off of that event, so they weren't stupid. When we lost Seymour, they said, "Okay, we ain't stopping this thing because he's gone. We're gonna find a way to continue this." So they brought in Wolfman.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't in the world's best health. I don't think he died. He didn't die until much later, but I don't think for some reason they didn't keep him on. I had heard that he shall we say dabbled in chemicals. So I think that may be some of the problem of what happened there.
It was
But
exactly the problem. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard. But
Well,
anyway, I'm sorry.
our old friend Ted Blumberg was once the baby wolf man. on the Wolfman Jack show. He
Ah,
played at that for about 2 or 3 weeks. And I won't uh, tell tales out of school, but yeah, that's what I heard.
and anyway, Wolfman was there 1 year that I can see, and then they did something else. I think they went away from the theater being the center point of it and just made it a walking around the park because there were no roving uh, actors at the haunt until 1977, and that was a complete accident.
Yeah,
Uh, they have these places where they call them peek rooms, where you look in the window and you see what's going on inside, and they have dummies in there. And what Knotts did was is they put scare actors in there, so when you looked in the window, somebody like scared you. Well, one of the scare actors, uh, he went to where he was supposed to be, and the door was locked and they couldn't find the key. So his boss said, well, just walk around and scare people. So he did, and it was so popular, people liked it so much that the next night they said, okay, all you guys all walk around and scare people. And it was just a huge success. And 1975, by the way, was the first year it sold out. 73 and 74, 73, it was just people that were fans of Seymour, pretty
yeah.
much. And then it just steamrolled after that, and it has turned into my daughter and granddaughter. I know my granddaughter was supposed to be here with the report on the haunt. She decided that she liked playing Barbies in her Barbie dream house more than being on the podcast. So sorry. But
That's as
anyway,
it should be.
they went last night to the haunt. They were there till midnight. Uh, they were able to do one maze. Said the line to get in, Georgia said it was 3 miles long. No, I think that might have been a slight exaggeration, but I, I'm sure to her it seemed like 3 miles. It was probably, my daughter said it was a very long line. So if you're going to go to the haunt, you better get there early because it's crowded. So,
Yep. Well, you
but,
should be.
uh,
Any,
oh, go ahead.
any special
Was,
at Knott's will always be very crowded. Disneyland too, of course, but um, Knott's seems a little more like it. It seems like a local business more than Disneyland does.
yeah, yeah. People don't fly all the way across the country to go to Knott's,
No.
but they fly all the way across the country, go to Disneyland, and then say, well, what will we do tomorrow? And they go to
Oh,
Knott's.
they've got this place. Yeah. And then they
Yeah.
go home and tell everybody.
Now, this
Okay.
book is where some of the information that I came up with came from. So just to give credit where credit is due.
And where is this
Now,
available from?
I saw it on Amazon.
Ah, okay.
Now, let me see here. Now, here, let me show you a few pictures that I found. This is a ticket from the original haunt. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you see the slide manipulator in the middle of that ticket?
No?
Good. Okay. This is a picture from the Seymour Lookalike Contest in 1973. And I
And you
don't think
don't want
there's
to see
any of
more.
them. The guy in the front is Seymour.
Yeah.
All the rest of them are lookalikes. Not really very lookalike. There's the front of Knott's. There is the flyer from the original haunt, which was only 2 days. I don't know where this came from. There's Seymour running down the street with a bunch of women in Star Trek costumes and a woman in a flowered dress. I think that woman in the flowered dress is Seymour's daughter, because
She does look like.
I've seen another picture with Seymour and his agent that you'll see here in a minute, and I think that's an older her.
It looks like him.
Okay, I got a double to that one. There's Seymour in the log ride, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he's got a zombie sitting behind him.
Yeah.
And there's Seymour in the haunted shack, which is no longer at Knott's Berry Farm. They tore it out. There's the sign from a land at Knott's Berry Farm that is no longer there.
No longer there.
Camp. It lasted like 2 years. The only thing good that Knott's got from the gypsy camp was the John Wayne Theater.
Yeah.
There's Seymour. There's Seymour at the Boot Hill.
Yeah.
There is Seymour, and that, I think it's that same girl in the flower dress.
Yeah,
and that's Seymour's agent with the mustache. I'm sorry, I don't have his name. There are a couple of pictures of the performance artists at one of the haunts, one of the early haunts. And this is a copy, and you can find this online. It's the employee newsletter about the haunt. It's very interesting. A lot of good stuff to read. It's hard to read because when you blow it up, it gets kind of fuzzy, but it was very interesting.
Very cool.
There is Seymour, and Seymour is the one without the skeleton.
Yeah.
He's got a skeleton, but it's well hidden.
It's inside, yeah.
Yeah. There's a flyer from the park. And this was the first and only Not Scary Farm costume contest, which I guess was a giant disaster, and they decided not to do it anymore. Which is wise. When something is a giant disaster, you should not do it anymore.
It's at that point you should stop, yeah.
These are supposed to look like Herman Munster and Lily Munster, but they don't really look very much like them.
No.
But he is smiling, though, so he was apparently happy.
Yeah.
This is the line to get into the very first Knott's Halloween haunt. And it's certainly much shorter than the line now. And this is backstage at the Halloween haunt. This is where the employees get to the mazes. Now, I've actually been back there when my daughter was working at the haunt for a little while. For, I think, 2 haunts, my daughter worked there. She had gotten on the wrong side of her boss at Disney Custodial and spent 2 years not working there. And then went back. So.
Well, it was the custodian had the problem. So.
Well, I don't know what the situation was. I don't get involved.
I know your daughter. It had.
So I think we did a good job talking about the origins of the Halloween haunt, if nothing else.
It's very unusual in this respect. I have never been to a Halloween haunt or Not Scary Farm, mainly because
Neither have I.
Yeah,
I've never been to it either.
Here.
I've been to Knott's tons of times, but I've never had any interest of going to the haunt.
Me neither. And of course, all the parks here now have that. Universal, a huge thing, and so does I believe Magic Mountain does too. Haunted
Uh,
Mountain.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Uh, but that is where it came from.
Yeah.
That is for all the country. That's the origins of
Of all the
the
haunted.
modern the modern style Halloween haunts. Knott's Berry Farm, Larry Benson. Anybody else makes any other claims, they're full of it because I checked and Larry Benson, Seymour, he was the guy.
He was the first one. The great thing about, well, this is how it used to be with Knott's. You really do get the feeling you're going to a small business when you go in there, because you can, if you have a problem, you can go straight to the management. I had this happen recently, about a year and a half ago. I went to the park and we had purchased the meal deal and all of this. And as a result, um, mainly confusion and some of the employees not understanding what was supposed to happen. But it, uh, as a result, I complained to management, and they credited back to me my entire expense of going there. I got our tickets in credited back. I got our meal tickets or meal deal, whatever it's called, credited back. And the lady I spoke with said she could offer you gasoline too. But it's a good, it's a good bunch of people. They try to honor the history of their park versus what you find in a number of the other ones around here. We have lots of them in California.
I've been trying to find someone to fund purchasing the chicken dinner restaurant and pulling it and making the Cedar Parks company
Yeah.
because they've really torpedoed the quality of the chicken dinner.
Oh, they
And
have.
I happen to know someone who was the chef there for 30 years back when Mrs. Knott was still alive. And while that man is still alive, I would love to get involved with him, find a backer, and buy that place and resurrect the chicken dinner back to the level of quality it was back then.
Yep.
That would be
Okay.
fun.
So anybody wants to buy a chicken restaurant, let us.
Get a hold of us. I got a guy that'll help us. I got a guy that knows a guy.
Uh,
Well, that's it, everybody.
yep.
It's about we got about 30 seconds, and uh, say goodbye, Mr. Raven.
He
See, he
did.
did it. I was hoping it would. So, me and Melanie and the Raven, we thank you for joining us, and
Thanks.
hopefully Melanie will be back in her revamped studio next week.
I will be.
So, we love you guys. Thank you for watching, and let's see here, and we will see you next week on Fan Flak. Bye.